What's up, everyone? The stock market was all over the place today, and the S&P 500 is still stuck in a crucial range. In this video, we're going to talk about all the important things you need to know heading into tomorrow, some solid setups, and a big money trade that you definitely won't want to miss. But Tom, looking at the heat map today, it was mainly a sea of red, and we just had a couple sprinkles of green here and there, but overall, it was definitely a bloodbath.
Yeah, it definitely was. The only thing really in the green were those oil stocks again. I know sometimes those oil stocks go green when the market falls. I also noticed T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon were also green, but besides that, mostly red. Tesla was down 3%. We saw Microsoft down 2.96, almost 3%. Nvidia was down 3% again as well. And even Amazon was deep in the red. And like you said, Mike, the SPY ended up staying right in the middle of this range that it's been in. You know, we fell back towards that 378 support, which we talked a lot about yesterday, and we're actually straddling pretty close to there. You know, it looks like 379 is actually holding up intraday today, but 378 is still that big level that I'm still watching. So for tomorrow, I will still be watching this big support, but it looks like 378, we will be testing it sometime shortly, especially given what we saw with Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft. Again, we saw the big tech stocks of the market tanking down. And look at Amazon. I mean, that was a big break there, right below 85 this morning.
Exactly, and look what they were doing in pre-market, Tom. They were booming, especially relative to a lot of other big tech stocks. What's going on with this one?
Yeah, this is actually pretty awesome, Mike. So they had a pretty good move in pre-market, but then they fell down obviously throughout the day. But I will say the news in pre-market was very nice, and it looks like they're actually looking to lay off more than 18,000 workers. This is actually going to save them quite a bit, Mike. It says that it looks to save them around $3.6 billion in yearly savings, according to Morgan Stanley. So that is a lot of money, Mike, being saved just by those layoffs. And I know layoffs are a very negative thing, but what I will say is that we have even more big numbers with jobs coming up tomorrow with the unemployment rate and the non-farm payrolls tomorrow morning, 1 hour before market open. This can really influence the way the S&P 500 goes. And with us falling down around that support on the SPY, Mike, this could maybe make us go in either direction. But getting back to Amazon, that is just very tough to see them having 18,000 layoffs. And I know a lot of companies have been laying things off lately, or have been laying people off and workers. And obviously people need to try to save money right now, as in these companies, because, you know, they're kind of getting squeezed right now with their margins. And, you know, the stock prices have really been reflecting that, Mike. Obviously, as we've seen, as 2022 was a very red year.
Yeah, so it's been a really tough year, for stocks and the economy and just like everything overall. Obviously, it's, sad to see 18,000 jobs being cut like that. But, Amazon is not the only company that's laying off workers. We're seeing it across basically all industries and all companies. So it's definitely big news either way. And 18,000 jobs is definitely something to take note of.
Yeah, it is. And the big thing that I saw, though, Mike, like you said, was that big jump in pre-market. You know, that seemed like it was actually some pretty good news initially early on there. And then, like, once the market opened, it gave all of those gains right back and then some, falling all the way down to 83, actually going red on the day. And if we look at that daily chart, it kind of looks like they're going to be extending down to maybe around that 82 support sometime soon. So I'm really going to be watching Amazon, Mike. Hopefully it can hold up at some of these supports coming up. It is a very crucial stock for the overall market, just like Apple, Tesla, and a few others are, obviously. We have those key blue chip stocks. Some people like to call them the FANG stocks, and some people actually call them the TANG stocks now because they took Facebook off the list.
Yep. So, Tom, looking at some other market news for tomorrow, what do we need to know?
Yeah, so obviously, the big thing for tomorrow, Mike, is going to be those jobs numbers coming up early in the morning, 1 hour before market open. I know I talked about this a little bit when we talked about Amazon, but it looks like the consensus is right around 200,000 on the non-farm payrolls, and the forecast is 220,000, well below the previous number of 263,000. I know people are looking for this number to actually drop down more and more, obviously, as the Fed looks to tighten things up, obviously. And that unemployment rate is actually scheduled to stay the exact same as the last number at 3.7%. So I found that interesting, Mike. They're looking for the payrolls to drop a lot, but the unemployment rate obviously is looking like it might stay the same. There will also be ISM non-manufacturing PMI, which could affect things at 10 a.m. Eastern time. But the main stuff to look for is going to be that non-farm payrolls and unemployment rate. And Mike, I think that this is really important because we've been talking about this range on the SPY for quite a while now. And if we look at that daily chart, you can see how the SPY has been really been consolidating down here after that big drop down from 400. So I'm thinking that maybe tomorrow morning, the SPY will start to either gap up or maybe gap down in pre-market, just kind of depending on how these numbers end up playing out. Hopefully, they end up helping the market go up a little bit. But I will say the way it was closing today, it's not looking good.
Yeah, and the good thing is that either way, there should be opportunity. So it's like if it gaps up, awesome. There's a lot of breakouts that can be played. At the same time, if it gaps down and we see a lot of stocks heading towards weekly lows, there's a lot of opportunity to capitalize off of those massive sell-offs, with either shorting the stocks, maybe like buying an ETF like SPXS, or even buying puts on that specific stock. So either way, I think it'll be good in that sense that we should see some good movement. So definitely be prepared for it going into tomorrow. But Tom, I want to talk about some setups that I'm watching for tomorrow. The first one is CCJ. So you guys know I've been talking about this one a lot over like the past couple months, but even especially over the past week. And it has been doing pretty good lately. It's still right at this like $21 support level. It has a lot of room to run up. The energy sector overall did pretty good today, and CCJ popped up 1.5% on a day where a lot of other stocks sold off. So I really do like the risk reward setup with CCJ right now. It's not necessarily like the biggest day-to-day mover, but it does tend to have good moves like over the course of like a week or 2 weeks.
Yeah, I will say I kind of like this setup as well. I've really been watching it off that 21 support that we've been talking about, and I'm really hoping to get a breakout, maybe up above like $23 here sometime soon. I noticed, there's a pretty big resistance up there. So hopefully we can break out, sometime soon, maybe tomorrow, especially with how it closed up green today, considering the rest of the market was bloody red, especially when you look at that heat map, besides the energy sector, so thank God CCJ is kind of, one of those energy stocks like that. I will say, Mike, my first stock today is going to be a bloody stock to the downside. That is going to be AMD. I will say AMD is very close, guys, to $62. We have been hovering right around this support for a couple weeks now. If AMD breaks down once again, Mike, I think that they will start to see a bigger, more extended sell-off back to the downside. You can kind of see how 62 is that recent low, and we have that low from October all the way down around like 55 to 56. So I feel like if we start to maybe break below 62 tomorrow, watch for a first initial move down to 60, and then possibly another move towards 58 and then 56. It seems like there's like 2-point increments here where I'm noticing there's a lot of key bounces on AMD. So I like this one for a play down, Mike. I know that we've been watching AMD to the downside a lot this year, and man, if it breaks that support, I think it could be a pretty good play.
Yeah, I was actually looking at this one too. It has been relatively weak over like the short, I guess you could just say the short term to make it easy. And, just like you said, like if we see a nice breakdown and momentum picks up, it could definitely fall further. So that'll actually be my second play of the day as well. So what is your last play for tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go ahead, Mike, and go with Bed Bath & Beyond. I will say, guys, this stock was insane today. They had some pretty crazy news, actually, of possibly going bankrupt. I didn't want to forget to mention this one, Mike. It's down 29.88%. Man, I'm not even sure it's worth a play at this point, but I figured I'd mention it. It's a pretty crazy stock, down 30% plus, like I said, talking about bankruptcy. There might be some opportunities to maybe get some very quick like intraday scalps in on this one if you see some crazy movement go on, or if you see something start to happen with Wall Street bets maybe, or something like that. It could be a pretty quick scalp play. But honestly, Mike, I'm just mentioning it because it's crazy. It's selling off, and I hate to say it, but it seems like they're going bankrupt, kind of like what we saw with a lot of other stocks like JC Penney's and a lot of those other retailers that have had a lot of issues over the past like 10 years.
Yeah, so just like you said, like if there's like a specific like big event or like specific like setup with this one, it might be worth playing, but realistically, it's just probably one to pass on. But we'll see. You know, if some news comes out, then that might be able to change things, but it's not looking too optimistic for BBBY.
Yeah, I will say if you guys are holding this one for the long term and you think that, maybe it'll start to go up eventually or something like that, I will say, Mike, I don't know about you. I probably would say cut it at this point. It sounds like it's pretty bad with bankruptcy. Obviously, do your due diligence and, be smart with it, but it's just a very risky play, guys. I know a lot of people like this one from all the AMC explosions and GameStop craziness, but just be very careful here.
All right, well, it's now time for the momentum plays. With the first one, we actually have AMD again to the downside.
Yeah, I will say this big support here right at 62 is gonna be huge. So if we break below 62, watch for a move down. You can see how we closed today, kind of like right around 62.30. I would really be patient, guys. Wait for the move below 62. I think that'll be the way to go. And I really feel like if we move below there, we could start to really get a bigger extended sell-off towards 60.
All right, with the next one, we have CCL, but to the upside.
Carnival Cruise Lines. Yeah, I cannot believe these airlines and cruise lines, Mike. They were exploding today. If CCL can break out above $9 tomorrow, go ahead and watch for some calls.
All right, with the next one, we have Amazon, but we need both directions.
For Amazon, that was actually a pretty bad move down. I know we talked about this one earlier as well. If they end up falling below $83, watch for some puts to the downside. That's going to be a pretty big support right around the low of day today. And they honestly are very close to there in after hours. And if they can get back above this like intraday triple top right around 84.25, then I'll go ahead and look for some nice calls back to the upside.
All right, so we are watching Amazon for a potential day trade to the upside, only if it breaks above the level Tom listed. We also have that downside potential play as well, only if it breaks below that lower level. And then for CCL, we have that upper level for an upside play. And then for AMD, we have that lower level for a downside play. But it is now time for the big money trade of the day. We have $422,000 that went into GCO. Basically, $422,000 went into the GCO 40 strike call options that expire on January 20th of 2023. This trade is very interesting. Basically, GCO is like a kind of like a footwear company, you could say. They have a lot to do with like different like shoe brands and all that good stuff. What's interesting about this one is that the options chain is not very liquid, which is, in my opinion at least, a good thing for unusual options trades. Now looking at GCO a little bit more, what's also interesting about this setup is that they actually are set to present at a pretty big conference called the ICR conference, and this is going to happen on January 10th. So I think it's interesting how we're seeing, slightly in the money call options being what appear to be bought right ahead of this conference. So we'll see what happens, but this definitely does look like a bullish trade, and overall, I do like the risk reward setup.
Mike, that's pretty cool. They have that conference coming up and someone put 422,000 into those 40 strike in the money calls. Definitely seems like a crazy setup. And I will say, this stock, honestly, like it seems like they had this big gap down from $62 all the way to like 52. You can see that within just a couple days there, they just had some massive gaps and just huge red candles to the downside. I'm kind of wondering, if they'll eventually start to move up and break those over the longer term. Even in the shorter term, even like a nice retest of maybe 50 or 52 up here around that resistance would be nice. But that's pretty crazy. They have that conference coming up, 422,000 into these calls. I will say, the stock, looking at it for the longer term, it's not really my favorite. But with the conference here, I think that's a very interesting play. And hopefully this stock can at least maybe retest 48 or 50, like I said.
Yeah, so we'll see. Remember, for those of you who don't know, if someone is buying call options, they want the stock to go up. Of course, it is possible that they are shorting these call options, but to me, that seems unlikely given the current situation. So we'll see what happens. But Tom, for tomorrow, do you have any other key things you're watching? I know we're going to have some volatility with this unemployment rate coming out. What else is on your mind?
Yeah, it's going to be insane. Watch tomorrow morning for the dollar with DXY. I actually noticed DXY had a big explosion back to the upside today. I feel like that some of these non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate is going to make a huge difference on that dollar. And, it looks like it's kind of moving back up, which is not going to really be very good for the stock market. So hopefully we continue to see the dollar fall back off, but, it's not looking good. It's pointing back up. Hopefully these unemployment rate numbers can help us pick a good direction, Mike. Like you said, even if it's to the downside, guys, watch some of these key levels like 378 on the SPY. If we break below there, there could be some very good opportunities for put plays. Same thing with AMD. We talked about that one a lot. If they fall under 62, watch for some put options. I really feel like that, some of these put plays are very overlooked. I know a lot of people like to look at calls, Mike, but over the past year and a half, puts have really been the way to go.
Alrighty, there we go. I also want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day in the Stocked Up Discord chat, and that is Sri. Thank you so much for being an active member of the community. It's awesome having you in the chat. So huge shout out to Sri. Besides that, guys, make sure to keep a close watch on SPY for tomorrow. It's been channeling very consistently all week long, and it'd be nice if we could see a breakout either below this support or above this resistance. If that happens, there should be a lot of opportunity associated with that. So make sure to keep SPY close on your watch for tomorrow. And besides that, let's make sure to end the week strong.